Time when I cannot get you guys to stop talking. So did we learn what did we learn that was cool? Just someone throw a hand up. I know you learned something cool. We all want to know. Come on, what's the gospel?
Yeah, we have preppers in the room, like doomsday preppers.
Yeah! I will say that I spent a crazy couple of weeks in southern Indiana on a backwoods space learning from a bunch of hardcore permaculture preppers. College, man. And it was very interesting, but I was also like, you guys, listen, I really like roads and libraries. So I'm putting my chips on that one. But super cool. If you ever want to talk to me about crazy permaculture backwoods stuff, I would love to. All right, what else did we learn that was cool?
We have a doula in our group.
Woo! All right. Everyone take note. Super cool, super cool. What else do we have that's interesting?
We have a physician here.
Oh! Is that, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah! All right, so if it's baby related and conceptual, we'll go back there. If it's baby related and happening now, come here.
We have someone that's really had a large influence on the Museum of Life and Science and its development.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Yeah, that's
My kids, thank you.
We have a bonsai lover.
Who's our bonsai lover?
Somebody who's learning bonsai, whatever.
Nice. One of our emeritus master gardeners was a hardcore bonsai guy. I think, was it Harold Johnson? It was a while ago. Yeah. All right, well, let's do two more. I know you guys have fascinating facts about each other, or even just cool facts. I'll take cool facts.
There are lots of Yankees in the room.
What? Two Jersey girls. Two Jersey girls. Awesome. Yeah. So we used to offer a class called Gardening for Yankees. Just because we were listen, the soil's not the same. Condolences. Super cool. Awesome. All right. So part of the way we really structure this class is to give you guys a tremendous number of opportunities to connect, right? That's really important. This is your class. This is your cohort. And you will go out and you will meet all the other master gardeners and they're all totally awesome, but you will always know what class you were part of, right? And these will be kind of your people. So we'll have snacks every time. We'll have group work. We'll have all these different things. Don't worry, group work in class. It's not like you have to rely on someone out of class. It sounds terrible. All these chances to really try to get you guys to get to know each other, because that's really part of the fun, I think, of Master Gardeners, is that you get to do amazing volunteer work, but you also get to do kind of a lifelong learning thing, and you get to do it in a community of like-minded people, right? So somewhere out here, your folks are here. We have currently 130 Master Gardeners, so worst case scenario, if you don't find your person in this room, we probably have them, but you'll probably find your person in this room, okay? So we're going to go through a little bit of class logistics, kind of overview, then we're going to take our break, then we're going to come back and we're going to learn about the intranet, TRA. That is our one-stop shop for all things Master Gardener. I know that some of you are thinking to yourself, I haven't signed up for my intranet account yet. I know who you are. You will have to sign up for it to do anything after this, so that's maybe a thing to do today. And then we'll finish up with a little bit on some resources that you might find useful. So, kind of first order stuff, it does really pay to be prompt. We'll be trying to start every day at 9. I know parking is a total bear. Just try to plan for that. Worst case scenario, parking does open up in front of the school across the street at 9. So if you're kind of a devil-may-care sort of person, you could just actually probably park at 9 and run over. But, there's not that many spots there. As class goes on, the parking lot will get increasingly feral, where people find out where the extra spots are. You can always park, right along here, there's some stripy spots. Oftentimes you can park in stripy spots. Please do not park in the stripy spots at the back of the building. Basically, the back half of the building is welcome baby, and they really need that space, and they need kind of things to be able to move appropriately back there. We always have a couple of folks who are very excited about their personal gardening situation, and I love that. Please hold the truly personal questions to the end. If you're like, oh, I saw a bug, right? That's a really good question for the end of the class. If you're like, I've seen this bug 5 times and my neighbor asked me about it. Then, right, all of a sudden, like, right, a second party is involved. Like, that's a good one. So those broader questions, don't feel bad asking those in class, but for the truly personal questions, please keep them to the end. I'll always stick around afterward. I have time to talk to you. I'd love to talk to you about your bug. That's actually what my job is, and I'm here because I enjoy doing that. And if I kind of politely start being like, that's interesting, let's hold that. I'm not trying to shut you down. I'm just trying to keep it moving. If you have not had your photo taken yet, please do that at the break. Photos are upstairs. We want to have everyone's photo. What we will do is we have a directory on the intranet. We'll get all those pictures put up there. Eventually, you'll be asked to add your own bio information if you have not already, but it's a really helpful thing. We will also share a document that's just everyone's photo and their name, because that's really helpful sometimes, so that you don't have to remember like what in the world that person's name was. You can just look for the picture. So for kind of the way through you'll move through the Master Gardener program is you're starting out right now as students, okay? When you graduate from the class at the end and you've completed everything in your final project, you will become interns. You'll be interns for the rest of the year. And then, after you've completed all your requirements, you will go into next year as a certified Master Gardener, and you'll kind of have just rolling requirements after that. So in the student phase, what we ask you to do to move into the intern phase is to, you will have quizzes basically every week. Some weeks there will be 2 quizzes, sorry about that, but they're never onerous. They are take home, you do them at home, they're open book, they're online, you can fill them out as many times as you want. I'm not trying to gotcha on questions, I'm trying to make sure you understand what we're talking about so that when you hit class, you have that background information. So each week, for the most part, your quiz will be, you'll have reading, your quiz will cover that reading, and then the class will cover that material. Most of our speakers will not cover the material directly as you read it. They'll give their own personal spin on it, right? And that's kind of why we do that. So for example, most of our readings, probably 90%, come from this book, the North Carolina Extension Gardener Handbook. There are 2 different editions of it out right now. They're basically the same. It doesn't matter which book you have. We have some copies in the office if you ever want to borrow one. There are copies at the library. And importantly, it is available in its entirety online for free. It's the exact same content. So if I go to like, sorry, this is tiny type, soil and plant nutrients, when I click on that, that is the chapter from this book, except actually probably a little bit more updated. Okay, because they update this, the online, before they ever obviously update these. This is really cool because it's, linked, you can see all sorts of cool images, it's really useful. So if that's more comfortable for you, that's another way to use the book. So, for example, the reason it's really important to do your readings and your quizzes is because from that book, we'll read about tree fruits and nuts, right? Fruit trees. And then we will go out to Alamance County, and we will hang out with Mark Danieli, who is an amazing orchardist and former extension director, and he will show you how to do that on some trees. If you show up out there with Mark, and you're like, an apple tree, what? Right? You're not going to get that much from that class. Whereas like doing your reading and everything kind of really prepares you for that. For the quizzes, like I said, you can take them as many times as you want. And to pass, you just need to miss 2 or fewer. Okay? That's the elevator going up and down. There is also, at the end of each quiz, 1 or 2 questions about the intranet. And that's because this is our one-stop shop. We need you to know how it works. It's very helpful if you actually have explored it a tiny bit. So we'll have some questions just to kind of get you in the habit of using the intranet, interacting with the intranet, knowing how all that works. You will have a final project, and I'll talk about that a little bit. Well, we can do it now. In your green folder, on the right-hand side, skip to the final project one if you want. this is your final project. This is the prompt. It's also, guess what? It's on the internet as well. And it's broken apart into 2 sections. And the whole goal of this is just to get you to think about your landscape and to really integrate some of this information that you're learning in class, right? So, okay, I learned about soil, but like, what does that actually mean for like a real Durham garden? And what does it mean for my garden, right? How do I actually put this information into practice? And so when you look through this, it might be a little bit overwhelming, but it's all completely doable. Every person that we've given this to, 95% have done this and they've done a good job. They all thought when they first saw this that they were terrified and that they didn't know how they were going to do it. And after a couple months of learning in this class and working on it, it was done and they felt good about it. Okay? So the example I told someone before we were starting is that I had someone tell me once, it's like an exam, right? Before you walk in, you're never going to feel prepared. You're never going to feel like you've got enough, and you're always going to be worried about how you're going to do. And then you're going to walk out of that exam and you're going to say, that actually, hopefully, that wasn't that bad and I can do it, right? That's what this is. Okay, so don't get overwhelmed about it. We'll talk more about it as we go. It's all very, very doable. So as part of your training, you will complete that final project. And then just as kind of a little bit of like administrative stuff just to be aware of, you can actually technically miss 2 classes. You can just miss them outright. We still ask that you do the quiz because like if someone comes in to ask you a question about weeds and you say, well, I missed that day, it's a little rough, right? So we ask you to at least have done the quiz. You can give me a heads up, you cannot give me a heads up, right? I appreciate a heads up, but I know life happens, so that's fine. We also can have you do, you can always watch recordings to get credit. So if you missed a class, but you still really want to know that material, you can watch the recording, send me a fun fact, ideally not from the first 5 minutes of the recording. And that's how you get attendance, or that's how you get credit for attendance, right? And so if you need to miss more than 2 classes, if you need to miss maybe 3, 4, 5 classes, somewhere in that range, we can typically make that up with watching recordings. We do ask, though, that you are attending the vast majority of classes in person. And that's just because we're increasingly moving to a model where we spend the first half of class doing a lecture and the second half of class doing hands-ons, doing all these other things. So if you're just watching the lectures, you're actually missing a lot of that kind of understanding of the content and practicing the content. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions? These will be personal questions definitionally, so it's fine. Okay? Cool. So once you've gone through class, you've done your quizzes, you got your attendance, you've done your final project, you will then move into the intern phase. And this is when most of you will start volunteering in earnest. Some of you will start volunteering before then. For example, we have a plant festival and a plant sale that happen late March and April. A lot of you will want to volunteer at those because they're like really fun, crazy events where you get to meet a lot of master gardeners and they're just like the good kind of chaos, really enjoyable. So some of you will start volunteering before the end of class. Most of you, though, will be doing most of your volunteering after class ends in that intern phase. As part of that, we ask that you complete 40 hours of volunteer time. Those are through like master gardener volunteer opportunities, right? So this isn't necessarily just volunteering in your community. It's opportunities that we have that you can find on the internet that you can do. If you want to do something outside of that, just ask me and we'll talk about it and see if it fits or not, okay? We have so many ways to serve as a master gardener here in Durham County. We are one of the largest master gardener programs in the state. We have a lot of different opportunities. You'll see in the internet overview some ways to find things, but also like there's just a lot to do, and I really encourage you to try a bunch of different things and kind of see what your flavor is, right? This first year is really good for exploration, for trying things, for seeing what fits, right? For having ideas. So we'll ask you to do that 40 volunteer hours. We'll ask you to attend 2 general membership meetings. These are typically online. We hold them typically on Zoom. There are 4 general membership meetings a year that have an education component and a business component. So, right, you'll hear from a speaker for an hour, and then you'll hear kind of like program updates for a while. And then we also have a recognition event in May, where it's a great fun, normally we have it at Duke Gardens, but they're under construction right now, so we'll find a new location for that. But we all get together, we do a potluck, it's really fun, we spawn around, we hear how great we are. It's great, right? Like, love that. That counts as a membership meeting too. So you have 5 opportunities to do this throughout the year. 4 of them are recorded, so if you can't make them, you can, again, watch the recording, tell me a fun fact. So 40 volunteer hours, 2 general membership meetings. And then the other thing that's kind of funny, but it's true, is technically you're required to do 10 education hours every year. This class will be about 50 hours. You will cover the 10, right? So technically you're supposed to do that, but it will all get covered in this class, so no worries. But starting next year, once you're a certified Master Gardener, you'll be 40 volunteer hours, 2 general membership meetings, and 10 education hours. And that's just kind of your rolling requirement from there. Does that make sense?
The education hours, do they have to be through like the EMG program, or can you take like Duke Garden class?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, that's my next one. You're good. No, you're good. Yeah, so the education hours, it's like pretty wide open actually. What we're really asking you to do though is like engage with research-based materials. So it can be through the Master Gardener program. We have a cool plants, pests, and pathogens thing that we do every month that's really interesting. They can be through Duke Gardens. You have a flyer for the Durham Garden Forum. That's actually a partnership between the Master Gardeners and Duke Gardens. You could take things at Ralston Arboretum, North Carolina Botanical Garden, some weird thing you found online from another university, right? If it looks research-based and we haven't talked about it, shoot me an email and be like, is this it? I'll be like, yeah, it looks fun. Tell me how it goes, right? It's very easy. We just ask that you're kind of continually engaging with that sort of material just so you're up to date and kind of learning new things. Education hours, I find, are never anyone's problem, right? And even if at the end of the year you don't have your education hours, I typically email folks and they're like, oh yeah, I did a whole bunch of stuff, I just didn't enter, right? Like, we're definitionally people who wanted to learn about gardening, right? So that's pretty easy. Oh, one other fun thing, if you're over 65, you can actually audit NC State classes for free. I don't know if you know that or not, I'm just sharing that information with you. That's true for any North Carolina resident. I have like fought them on the fact that I think Master Gardeners should be able to do this too. I know, right? It's baloney. So, but no one's biting. And so what I would encourage you though to do is, the way I've seen people get around this is they find a friend who's over 65 who also wants to take that class. And then they just have little watch parties together. It's really good for the online classes to do it that way. So there's a home propagation course that's an online course that I know people have had watch parties for. So there are ways to do it, but unfortunately it's over 65. And if you want more information about that, I can get you information about that. Okay, so a couple of like really specific class logistics. Here you have a copy, I think this was the first page in your folder of the schedule. This is subject to a little bit of change, but not a lot of it of change, right? Like broad strokes are set. Something to know is that at the bottom of the page, there is a weather policy. If there's severe weather, there's a number at the bottom to call. Typically, if there's severe weather, I will try to send out an email the moment I know something's happening. So check your email. That's maybe something to tell you in general. I'm an emailer, not a caller. Okay? So if you try to call me, I encourage you to try to email me too. It's kind of like how I can process all the information, is kind of trying to get it to go through a smaller number of channels. This will show you, so for next week, for example, we're going to ask that you read the botany chapter, and then I'll be teaching the first couple classes. You'll have a quiz, you'll have all this other information, but this is kind of the broad overview. The things I would draw your attention to are, there are a couple of days with different schedules. So here you'll see your initial training project. The first part is due at the beginning of class 9. And then, okay, so March 13th. This is the one where we will be out at the demonstration orchard. We'll be out in Alamance County. For all of these, if you need to leave early or if something's going on with your schedule, please do that, right? Please do what makes sense for you. After that, we will have an optional soil lab field trip where we'll go over to Raleigh and see the North Carolina Department of Agriculture soil lab. It's a really interesting space, but that is an optional field trip. If something happens to the orchard visit, this becomes the rain date for the orchard, right? So that's how that'll work.
Is the orchard visit on the same schedule, 9 o'clock?
Yeah, it's all like 9 to 12:30, and so that's really worth noting because we'll be in Alamance County once, and we will be in Chatham County. We'll be in Pittsboro once, and 9 is still 9, but Pittsboro is an hour away. So like, plan accordingly, right?
I have a question.
Yeah.
With our reading, so for instance, next week, we have chapter 3 botany. The reading should be done prior to class, like, so we read chapter 3 before next Thursday.
Yeah. So this is kind of, that's a great question. So this is what's due for this week,
Okay.
right? So chapter 3 is due, and then you can forget everything I'm telling you right now because I send you a massive email with a bunch of information after every class. So like, it's cool, you guys. You don't have to remember all these details. This will be the reading, and then your quiz will be due the Wednesday, like next Wednesday. Like I always want it the Wednesday before class, right? Just so I know that you did it. Was that someone else's question too?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. The other days that might be a little bit funny, Rain Gardens often goes long because Mitch Woodward, our speaker, is phenomenal. And what we do is we actually go up to the museum and we see some of the rain gardens he helped install up there. And he gets really excited and starts opining. And then you start seeing people like falling off the back of the tour, right? Because they're like, I got places to be. So just know that. There's a day in here where, yes.
So for the rain garden day, do we meet here?
We'll meet here, and I'll always give you that information. The only days we don't meet here will be class 10, class 11, and class 16. So fruit and nuts field trip, or fruit and nuts soil lab field trip, and native plants and design. And I will like shout that at you the class before, and I will email that to you aggressively, and I'll be like, don't come here, right? Like, get out of here.
Don't come.
Yeah, don't come here. So this class here, April 10th, there's an optional tour of Briggs in the afternoon. I think our Briggs agent, Sherilyn, is also going to do maybe a nice lunch here that day. I don't know, right? So I'll give you more details as that comes. And then finally, the last day to be aware of is April 24th. We go to Chatham for that. We go to Pittsboro, Chatham County. Extension is very county-based, so you'll keep hearing me refer to places by their county, which is funny because before I started this job, who even knows what county like is one over for the most part, right? But it's fine. Debbie Ruse, if you've never been to the Pollinator Paradise Garden at Chatham Mills, that is a phenomenal site. She is one of our absolute statewide specialists in this sort of pollinator gardening. Every year she does extension classes that basically book up before you can even get into them on pollinator garden and design. And so we're just going to her directly. We're getting her, and we'll be able to do a tour of her garden at that time as well. And so that's kind of a nice opportunity to see a really cool space.
I know you said they fill up, but like, are we able to take classes with other county extensions?
Love that. Yeah.
Okay.
100%. Yeah. So like Chatham, Debbie Ruse is not the same position as me. The person who's in the same position as me is Matt Jones. He'll actually be teaching us for one class. He's a phenomenal teacher. And I would tell you, like, just see what Chatham is up to, right? Because they do great classes, and they do weird classes, right? Like, stuff that, like, my favorite example from him is always, he did a class on, winter twig ID, which I was like, Matt, hardcore botany nerd. Like, I love that for you. But I was like, I remember struggling with that in school. Like, what is happening? That thing sold out. He sold out like 5 sessions of that. Like, you couldn't get in. Like, right? Like, people were like beating down the doors for winter twig ID. And it's just like a bunch of like dichotomous keys and microscopes and, you know. So yeah, absolutely. I would say take classes wherever you think look interesting. That's really the thing, right? Is like we are in Durham County, but we're part of this whole big network, and take advantage of the whole network. Take advantage of all of it, right? So does this all make sense to folks? Okay, we do have one makeup day at the end if we needed. We typically don't need those. Oftentimes now, just because we're all a little bit more used to Zoom and stuff like that, if a class gets canceled for some reason, like weather or something like that, oftentimes we'll just move to Zoom and have a shorter class, because it's just a little bit easier to stay on schedule and keep it rolling. Okay. So in addition to the breaks at the midpoint, which we're coming up on, we also typically reserve the last half-hour class for covering like logistical stuff. So we will be talking about what you want to do as a volunteer, kind of how do you get engaged, what are some useful resources and materials. So all this stuff that's not just content, but kind of like how do you volunteer, how do you actually do this work. So you'll get a fair bit of that as well. And then the one last thing I'll say, and this is a little bit out of order, but the one last thing I'll ask is, just when we're thinking about, kind of some of these class requirements, so you have your quizzes, you have your final project, I know that for many of us, we submitted a soil sample as part of our application. Was there anyone who is expecting, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, that would like make my heart race if someone asked me to do that. If you were expecting to get soil sample results and you didn't, please just like talk to me during the break so that we can figure out what we need to do to get you what you need. Because especially starting in the third class, the soils class, it'll become a little bit helpful to have your own results. And if you're someone who didn't submit a soil sample because that like just didn't make sense for you in your application, just give me a heads up on that too so that I can know kind of in case we need to get you some other information or to work with you.
Should we have had those by now?
You should have been emailed them by the lab. I can probably find yours for you. Yeah.
How do you find out? I don't know where that email is.
Yeah,
so
sure.
long ago.
I will send you that information in your follow-up email. So that NCDA runs just a database of all that information, so you can find it very easily. So maybe that's the thing too, is if you're like, I've never seen it and this has really been eating at me, approach me during the break. If you're like, I don't know if I saw it, that was a while ago, try to look it up on the database, and if you don't find it, shoot me an email. Does that sound good? Okay, cool. So I think at this point we are actually just going to go ahead. We do a full break, right? Like we break for about half an hour. Snacks are on the other side. The things I will mention is if you have not had your picture taken yet, go upstairs, go with Trisha. You will find we'll get your picture taken. We'll have all that taken care of. If you're someone who's nervous about photos, I bet Mary would also show you your photo if she hasn't shown it to you yet, if you wanted to have it retaken. Like, some of us are like that. That's fine. I'm like that. So that's great. But let's meet back here at 10:30. Snacks are across the hall. Restrooms in the back. Let's do it.